In this video, I'll be giving you an easy guide to completing both of the round 100 hardcore boss fights solo on the brand new Black Ops 6 Zombies DLC 4 map Reckoning. These two hardcore boss fights are not only the hardest boss fights in the game by far, but round 100 Richtofen rivals the Mephistopheles boss fight from Infinite Warfare in terms of difficulty, so if you're even considering attempting challenging him, stay tuned for the best tips and tricks to take him down. Before we get into it, drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, as it's actually taken me about 24 hours straight of trying to get the Richtofen boss fight down to a T so I can help coach you guys through it. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So right off the bat, you're obviously going to have to reach round 100 before you can even attempt either of the hardcore versions of the S.A.M or Richtofen boss fights. Reckoning has by far the hardest round 100 in the game, and it takes you the longest out of all of them, so you're going to have to set aside about like 3 to 4 hours just to even get a single crack at either of these two boss fights. For the sake of time in this video, I won't be going over the high round strategy I used to get to round 100, but I'll have a detailed guide dropping later in the day if you're struggling, so be on the lookout for that. With that being said though, there's a ton of augments you're going to need to have equipped before you even go into the game for both your perks and your field upgrade to help you not only get to the high rounds, but also survive in both of these boss fights. Starting with your perks, for stamina up, I'd suggest Free Faller because in the S.A.M boss fight, she'll launch you into the air and you'll need to get back down to the ground ASAP or she'll one-tap you. And the Hard Target augment because during the Richtofen boss fight, Uber Klauses and Elite Uber Klaus cores will be spawning, spewing electricity at you as you run around. This might also decrease Richtofen's Wunderwaffe damage against you, but it's unconfirmed. For Juggernog, I'd run Probiotic to increase your health as you're going to need the extra HP and Hardened Plates to mitigate enemy damage. For Speed Cola, you're absolutely going to want to be running Supercharged, as the in-between phases for both S.A.M and Richtofen are critical for recharging your field upgrades, and you can't do it as easily without this equipped. For Vulturade, I'd use Parting Gift for extra Gorgafex ammo to help with crowd control, and Picky Eater to get some of your tacticals back. Now in Death Perception, I'd use Critical Eye for the potential that some body shots can deal critical damage. It's really good for both of these boss fights, not only for the elite enemies that'll spawn, but also the bosses themselves. For PhD Flopper, you'll absolutely 100%, no doubt about it, need PhD Slider and Tribulogist, as movement speeds and sliding are of the utmost importance in surviving against S.A.M and Richtofen. I genuinely don't even know if it's possible to beat either of these boss fights without both of these augments equipped for PhD, so make sure you're running these. And rounding out the perks, for Double Tap, I'd suggest using Double Time to increase your fire rate and Double Standard because it'll double your damage to the bosses on non-critical shots. For your field upgrade, you'll be running Ether Shroud in both of these boss fights for obvious reasons, and the augments that pair well are Burst Dash and Extension. Just like PhD's augments, Extension is literally a must-have for Richtofen's fight. You have to have this equipped or you're low-key not beating Richtofen. Now onto the in-game setup. Most of what you'll be using, like lethals, tacticals, and score streaks, are the same in both boss fights. However, the main weapon you're going to use in each of these fights are different. For the sake of organization, we're going to start with the S.A.M AI boss fight and the weapon I used. I think, personally, the best weapon to use against S.A.M is the Maelstrom shotgun. You can do mass amounts of damage to her critical zones quickly despite her being up in the sky. Now, up on screen is the Maelstrom build I used to shred S.A.M during this boss fight. I'd run the Monolithic Suppressor, Ranger Foregrip, Extended Mags 2, CQB Grip, Light Stock, Steady Aim Laser, and the Dragon's Breath Fire mod. Of course, you're free to play around with this however you'd like, but this is what worked for me, so I'm just giving you what I used. In terms of the in-game setup, you should absolutely be running Stims as your tacticals, Semtex as your lethals, and making sure that you have the Death Machine equipped as your score streak. I'd also recommend Deadwire on your Maelstrom, as during the boss fight, parasites can morph into Doppelghasts and Amalgams, but also it's great for crowd control and the zombies. Now that you have everything set up and ready to go, you can teleport into the boss arena and activate the Sentinel artifact to get the boss fight rolling. The lift stages on your way up to the boss arena, where you have to fill up the LTGs with souls and break the ether crystals, are pretty self-explanatory. There's not much different in these two phases aside from the zombies just being at max health, so I'd recommend using your Gorgafex to take them out. Once you've cleared the lift stages, the main boss fight against S.A.M will begin. On the round 100 version of S.A.M, she'll have access to all of her abilities right out of the gates in stage 1. That said, the boss fight starts out with her shooting ether bullets down at you. Stay as far away from her as possible and wait for her to do the red laser ability. As soon as she gets done, get close to her in Ether Shroud and then do as much damage to her red zones as possible. You won't be able to get through this phase in one shroud here, but the goal is to eliminate as many of the red spots as possible. Again, she'll chase you around the arena until going into the laser trap for a second time. Without Shroud, it's going to be a lot harder to hit her after she stops doing her laser attack, but just keep going, keep chipping away, and you'll get to the point where you can damage her core. If you don't complete the phase here, she'll start to mix in her spinning attack, but she'll also become damageable during this time. Track where she's moving and then move in the opposite direction and shoot her as much as you can. This is, in my opinion, the deadliest attack she has in the entire boss fight because she can trap you in place with these energy spots, doing a lot of damage to you, and also you won't be able to move as quickly with the zombies hitting you at the same time. This really isn't hard to avoid though if you're careful, so just lock in and move in the opposite direction of her. Once you make it through phase 1, she'll disappear into a portal and you'll have a S.A.M trial to complete. Trials are exactly the same as her normal boss fight ones, but obviously much harder to complete on round 100. If you fail either of these, you'll get hit with a grief, either weapon carousel or ammo drain. If it's weapon carousel, don't panic, you'll get your weapons back after the timer expires. It'll be a lot harder to move around during this phase, but again, just don't panic, you're getting your weapons back. If it's an ammo drain, just run around and monitor your ammo. If you're almost at 0, make sure to buy more ammo from the ammo crates in the arena because it'll eat your field upgrade charge if you run completely out of ammo. Honestly, I would just ignore both of these challenges and focus on charging up your next Ether Shroud with Gorg effects. Phase 2 and 3 are exactly like Phase 1 here, so if you manage to get through Phase 1 okay, you should have no problems getting through the next 2 phases. Just remember to keep your distance, shoot at her while she's spinning, Ether Shroud when she's at a standstill, and work on getting those crit shots in. My last piece of advice would come in Phase 3. When she stops after using her laser, use your Shroud, pull out your death machine, and you can do an insane amount of damage to her. This should put you most of the way through her last phase, but if not, run around, wait for her to hit her laser attack again, and then use the death machine to finish her off. Now on to what everyone is probably here for, the round 100 Richtofen. Like I said at the beginning of the video, round 100 Richtofen is the closest thing to Infinite Warfare Zombies Metastopheles in terms of difficulty that we've seen in a Call of Duty Zombies title, and it is easily, hands down, the hardest boss fight Treyarch has ever put out. While I've seen a lot of speculation put out there about which weapons are best to use against Richtofen, I'd highly recommend either the new ABR for those of you that already have it, or the GPR. Both do about 9,000 damage per shot in Richtofen's second stage, which is where a lot of people seem to get hung up on this boss fight. On screen now, I've flashed my ABR loadout that I know will power you through this boss fight, but because it's new in the battle pass, most people probably don't have it, so for the sake of the video, here's the full GPR build that I used to complete this boss fight solo. I ran the Kepler Microflex Optic, the Monolithic Suppressor, CHF Barrel, the Ranger Foregrip, Extended Mags 2, the Balance Stock, Straylock Laser, and Recoil Springs. The initial in-game setup is exactly the same as the S.A.M AI, where you'll want stims, a death machine, and Semtex ready to go when you head through the portal. Once you select the Richtofen boss fight and the lift starts heading upwards, you'll immediately realize that this boss fight is just something different. HVT Uberklaus cores will spawn from the top of the tower and fly down to you. These have the lightning attacks of regular Uberklaus cores that will damage you for 75 health apiece, but they're absolutely juiced on their health. This is where you'll want to take out the death machine and wax all of these guys, because trying to do the initial soul box with them flying around is incredibly hard, and honestly, it's nearly impossible. When you do take them out with the death machine though, they won't respawn on this floor, and you can just focus on filling up the LTGs with zombie souls. So again, right when you see them flying down, start poaching them, and honestly, don't even let them spawn on the map. On the floor above, more Klaus cores will spawn, and again, take them out with the death machine, otherwise things are going to get really incredibly hectic. Once the Uber Klaus cores are taken care of, clear off the spores, waste the rest of your death machine, and then pick up another one from the crafting table that's right next to the lift. You're now headed into the Uber Richtofen portion of the boss fight, and this phase is actually the harder of the two in my opinion. Richtofen will jump down and begin to attack you like a regular Uber Klaus. This part isn't too bad as long as you keep your distance, but after you start to damage them, at least like 20 of the Uber Klaus HVT cores you fought in the elevator will spawn in and around the arena. They're just as deadly and hard to take out as the ones in the lift, so you really have to be paying attention to where they shoot you from. I've found that if you hug the outer rim of the tower and constantly run around here, you can pick off Uber Richtofen, and the energy blasts from the Uber cores usually just fly off the building behind you. If you play more towards the middle of the map during the stage, the Uber Klauses have a much easier time hitting you. This phase is all about patience and survival as you trickle down Richtofen's health. Do not try to take out any of the Uber Klaus cores or the Uber Klauses that spawn during this phase, because they'll just respawn, causing the enemies to be all over the arena rather than all jumbled up. You also do not want to waste an Ether Shroud in this phase, otherwise you likely won't be making it through the entire boss fight. Once Richtofen's health gets down to about 20%, take out the death machine and now wax the Uber Klaus cores and the Uber Klauses after his health gets below that 20%, because they'll no longer spawn, and then you can solely focus on Richtofen for the rest of the boss fight. Once you enter phase 2, Richtofen will jetpack off into the sky and do 2 dive bomb attacks. After the second dive bomb, immediately Ether Shroud and lay into his jetpack. If you hit every shot and follow him closely, you'll be able to get through this entire phase with just 1 Ether Shroud. If you don't finish him off here, run around the exterior of the arena like you did in phase 1 and only shoot him when you're behind cover and on the move. If you stand still for even a second while he's looking directly at you, he'll spam you with the Wunderwaffe and end your game. If you keep moving, he can't really hit you as well, but the second you stop to shoot at him in the open, it's GG's, game's over, you're going to have to restart. Once you do make it through this phase 1 though, he'll jetpack off and you'll be able to recharge your Ether Shroud by constantly killing zombies. Right about the time that your Ether Shroud should be charged, Richtofen will commence another dive bomb attack. Again, after this second attack, use your Shroud and get behind him to take him down quickly again. You should be able to get through this phase yet again in one Shroud and then head into the final gap before the final phase. Once again, charge your Ether Shroud in this gap period, he'll come down for another dive bomb attack, and then when he's finished, Shroud immediately and for the final time, try to take him out. Like I said, guys, this boss fight is easily the hardest one that Treyarch has put out. You have to be really on top of your game and locked in. Your adrenaline's going to be going, your heart's going to be pumping. There's no room for error in this boss fight. You cannot mess up whatsoever. But I was able to get through the entirety of the boss fight with only using a shields up. I did have a Perkaholic and a raindrops just in case I got smoked or something happened, but I actually didn't have to use it because if you hug the walls on the outer rim of the map, you should be okay. This boss fight does take a lot to perfect though. It took me like 24 hours of straight just playing it and trying to get to a point where I could master not only the different enemies that are spawning around here, but also just how Richtofen moves and how he shoots at you. Again, you cannot stand still for even a half a second when you're in the second phase. Otherwise, he's going to stun you with the Wonderwaft, take off half your health and half your plates, and then two-shot you, and it'll be GG's over. Gonna have to restart. I do think as long as you're on top of your game and you understand how Richtofen moves, you should be fine to get through this one. I honestly think in some cases this is actually easier than the S.A.M boss fight because you can just get through the entirety of the second part of the fight without ever really having to deal with Richtofen because of the Ether Shrouds that you have. But again, you have to be careful, you have to be moving, you have to be on top of your game, you have to be locked in. It's very, very, very tough and definitely the hardest product that Treyarch has put out in terms of boss fights, I think, ever. But that's how you're able to get through both of the hardcore boss fights. Shout out to everybody that helped me in the streams, giving me pointers, giving me tips, giving me their builds. You guys absolutely helped me through this, man. It was a 24-hour grind that took a lot of time. Again, I'll probably be releasing a round 100 guide here shortly, so if you have trouble actually getting to round 100 to face these guys, I should have a guide explaining exactly how I was able to do that multiple times over, 5 at least times over to get to round 100 to do these attempts. So hope you have a good rest of your day. Stay safe, stay hydrated. Peace.